Hello, everybody. It's David Perlmutter from Quantum Listing, and we are here today with Mark Kalkwarf and Sara Malcolm of Atypical. And
Hello, hello.
Hi, everyone.
so, our topic today is keeping your marketing innovative, and we also uh, have a little more to talk about than just that. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Mark and Sara. Uh, so here are Mark and Sara. And first, I want to say that Sara was when I first started working in commercial real estate technology with quantum listing, Sara was one of the first people who I spoke with. I think probably the first one was Michael Beckerman, who subsequently became uh, Sara's partner. And he put me in touch with Sara, with Duke Long, with Linda Day Harrison, and I got to tell you that those folks are people who are my go-to people whenever I have things that I need to talk about. And Sara was really generous with her time. She's working at the International Council of Shopping Centers at the time, and we had a nice lunch in the city and gave me a tour of their offices. And Sara has been super generous with her time and advice. So thank you, Sara. And I had the pleasure of meeting Mark this past May in Las Vegas at the ICSC Recon event. Uh, and got to spend a little bit of time with him there. But I'd been a big fan of Mark's even before I knew who he was. I knew the name or face behind the work, and that was because I had seen some of Atypical's campaigns. The ones that really stuck in my head were the coffee shirt one and Who is Rob Stark? And maybe we'll get to hear a little bit more about those later, but they really did some amazing work in terms of grabbing your attention and bringing you in and making you want to learn more about what it was they were promoting. So uh, let me tell you a little bit about Mark and Sara, and this is from the Atypical website. Uh, Mark and Sara are co-presidents, as you can see here, and Mark is co-president and Mariah Carey's #1 fan. Once referred to as a marketing wizard, Mark combines his technical background, creative thinking, and entrepreneurial spirit to push creative boundaries and come up with big ideas. I don't know about the Mariah Carey thing, but the rest of it is definitely true. Sara is co-president and chief Lego builder. Been there, done that. I love it. Sara has been acknowledged as one of CRE industry leading digital marketing pioneers. She's won over 45 awards, was one of them an Emmy, and was recognized, a Grammy rather, as Real Estate Forum's Women of Influence. So, that being said, anything that either of you want to add? Sara, do you have anything to add about Mark?
Yeah, he said he would sing his favorite Mariah Carey song on today's interview.
Well, I think maybe we
So
should
go ahead,
save
Mark.
that to the end.
Thanks for that, Sara.
As you can tell, I'm a really great partner.
And Mark, I'll give you the opportunity to return the favor. You have any thing you want to add about Sara?
I mean, I'm a nice guy. I'm not going to put her on the spot. I think I'm good.
All right. I can see this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership.
We have a lot of fun for sure.
All right. So I hope I'm not giving a spoiler here, but there was some big news yesterday. Why don't you guys tell us about what this is all about?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want this webinar to be too much of a commercial, so we'll get into the fun stuff of talking about innovation, industry trends, and so on. But yeah, so we had some big news yesterday. The content funnel joined forces with Atypical, and we have rebranded under the Atypical name. So we are one company. So we are so excited. The content funnel was, we focused on content marketing, and Atypical focused on, they're a full service marketing agency, really a full suite of leading edge digital marketing solutions. So now we are all one, and we are a full service marketing agency, which is really exciting. So thanks for allowing me to get that plug out there. Mark, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think that covers it. I mean, Sarah and I have been working together for many years, and I think just the opportunity to kind of work with people that's got so much experience, and we've definitely figured out over the time that we've been working together that our skill sets sort of complement each other extremely well. And I think the team that has now sort of come together to what is now Atypical really covers a huge amount of sort of depth and breadth of real estate experience, marketing, sort of know-how. So I'm excited about what we're going to sort of be doing going forward, and what this means to sort of our clients and the industry.
And you're an international tour de force also. Mark is based in South Africa, and Sara here on the East Coast.
Yep. So we've got offices in the U.S. and South Africa. So, but the majority, 99% of our clients are U.S. based. So, and the team over in South Africa is we can charge a lot less. So we're very competitive in our pricing, but our product is amazing.
I will testify to that. Terrific. So tell me more about what you perceive to be your clients' pain points in commercial real estate marketing, and why do they come to you?
So I think one of the biggest pain points that I've seen is really just being creative as an industry, right? Our industry is so traditional, so they're really having trouble not only finding the creativity, but also feeling comfortable to break out of that box that they're in. So that's one thing, and also it's just with social media gaining traction, and everyone kind of being in the mix, it's harder to get noticed now. So I think that's one of the biggest pain points. I think the other one is just solving traditional problems, right? So filling vacancies. And Mark, do you want to talk to some of the things that we're doing to kind of help solve some of those pain points?
Yeah, I think at its core, some of the pain points is just, sometimes it's just you need additional capacity. So it's being able to kind of have a team that has the experience, that can slot in very easily with your existing team, that at a sort of the most basic level is just allowing you to have more hands on deck. So if you're running a specific campaign, or you just need additional capacity, it's having that sort of partner that you can work with and pull in when necessary, that gets it, that can hit the ground running. And I think, also the specific skill sets that we bring to our clients is not necessarily skill sets that you want to kind of have on your team full time. So, we've got people who specialize in augmented reality and 2D animation and those sorts of things. And that's not necessarily a competency you want to build out internally. But I think in order to kind of stay ahead of the pack and put out content and package up your message in a way that's exciting and interesting, and it's going to get the attention of your target audience, you need to be exploring those kinds of technologies. And I think that's what we allow our clients to do, is kind of explore these technologies without going through the huge, cost or sort of effort of putting those structures in place internally.
Yeah, and that's, I speak a lot at events, and when I meet marketing folks, it's usually just like 1 to maybe 5 in a marketing department, and usually it's more on the 1 or 2 side. So they don't have a ton of support, and they always are needing more. And so I think that's something that's a huge pain point just for the marketing department. And then also, they get everything thrown at them. Hey, we have this problem. We have this problem. We have a new, tenant we want to promote. We have, 5 vacancies we need to fill like yesterday. And so they're constantly getting these things thrown at them. And there's amazing ways to solve that using marketing. So, because I think people are used to, picking up the phone, making phone calls, hitting up their email list, but there's so much more that you can do.
Yeah, and I think that's also something that we try and sort of work into. What we're doing is obviously the technology is constantly changing. The solutions out there are always changing. So we like to kind of keep ahead of that and make sure that the ideas that we're bringing to solving these problems are fresh. And I think that is a bit of a problem, is keeping up with all of these trends and the changes and everything can be a full-time job on its own. And we like to kind of put in that effort and bring that to our sort of offering. So we're bringing the ideas in terms of how you can use these new technologies and how you can package things up in a different way, which I think, it does sort of help, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one of the marketing people that I follow online is a guy named Mark Schaefer, and he wrote about content shock, basically how we're all bombarded by so much content these days that it gets more and more difficult to cut through that and really reach the attention of your target audience. How do you fight that?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, we see it, in our personal lives as well. I mean, it's everywhere. It's constant and it's always around. And I think that is definitely, I might be sort of jumping ahead a bit, but it's definitely a trend that I think we're starting to see, is that people are almost looking for those more authentic experiences and, seeing brands being able to connect with them on a more personal level.
Yeah.
And I think you definitely see the rewards in the campaigns and the sort of projects that you do if you actually take a lot of time up front to understand how you can make those connections and not just from an ROI point of view, but actually create like authentic engagement opportunities so that people can create that trust and build that that engagement with your brand over time. It doesn't necessarily have to be see the banner ad, click it, go to the landing page, convert, and the deal's done. It's about understanding that you need to put in the time to build up that engagement, and people recognize that. People see that. I think people are going back to that sort of wanting that traditional, authentic engagement and connection with the brand before they actually sort of commit.
Yeah. So.
And I think oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. You please.
So I think that that's what's important. I think that's what's missing. I've seen over the years is people miss the strategy step of understanding, like, okay, what is the strategy going to be? What are the goals and objectives? What are you trying to achieve? And, and then coming up with a way, a bunch of creative ways to do that, and then executing. So I think people are just really going to like, okay, we're just going to do this one blog on this thing, right? And we're going to put that out and blast it everywhere. And that's what's going to get lost, right? So you just have to have a more comprehensive, bigger idea, bigger plan to be able to, stand out from the rest. And we've seen that approach really works well. And then even campaigns, you want to make sure that you have, that's the one thing, like back in the day, I'm sure you guys remember that people used to do like really big campaigns, and they still do in like, other industries, but our industry, not so much. And I feel like we as an industry need to get back to that, because that's how you build your brand. That's how you, like Mark said, build that relationship, you build that trust. They, they get to know you. They know that you're legit, right? That they want to work with you. So yeah.
And how do you do that at scale? I mean, you and I, we're having a conversation. It's terrific. But how do you, reach 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people.
I mean, I
Well,
think
there's,
that the
yeah, go ahead.
technology, yeah, I think the technology platforms have made it extremely easy to
Yeah,
reach people. I don't think that's the problem. I mean, I think,
no.
and that is part of the problem, is that because it's so easy and accessible, you're competing against everybody now. It's not people who have only got marketing knowledge and experience that can run these campaigns, or if you're competing against a much wider audience now. But I think the technology is in such a way that you can reach whoever you want to reach. You just need to put in the time and the effort to understand who that person is and make sure that the message and the story that you're telling them is relevant to them, that they actually can identify with it. So it's almost like you need to do a lot of upfront work.
Yeah, I have actually a funny story. Has nothing to do with our clients, but my grandma and grandpa, who are 91, they needed to do a garage sale in Simpsonville, South Carolina. And so my sister and I went down there for a few days, and the amount of stuff that 91-year-olds have is just incredible, as you can imagine. So
the number like, how 3-year-olds have, Sarah, is unimaginable. It's
yes, yes, it is. We're constantly giving toys away. So I'm like, I don't even think it's possible for us to even sell all this stuff. So I looked at my sister and I'm like, let's do a Facebook ad for a garage sale. Now, not something I've ever seen anybody do before, but I was able to spend, $30 and target a certain audience in a radius around where they lived, which it's very hard to market. I mean, they're in the middle of nowhere. And the garage sale started at 9 a.m. and we had sold 80% of everything before 9 a.m. because of the ads.
Wow.
So it's like Mark said, and I know it's like such a random story, but it's just so telling that anyone can jump on and target and do an ad now. So how do you really stick out from all of these, from everybody who's essentially a marketer, right?
Interesting. So I see we have in our audience, and I don't know if she can unmute herself or whether she has a speaker available to her, but Casey Flannery, who is one of the impresarios behind CRE Chat Live on Twitter. And we're actually going to have Casey and her partner in crime, Melissa Alexander, tomorrow at 3 o'clock doing a webinar with us.
Oh, definitely have to. You don't want to miss that. We're actually going to be on with Casey and Melissa in August. So we're going to be a part of one of their chats, which is exciting.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, building a community and doing these relationships, creating these relationships, is something that they're working on, in their CRE chat. And what I love about this and what you guys are saying is that nobody wants to be sold to anymore. We're all sick of being sold. I mean, the guys who you connect with they ask you to connect with you on LinkedIn, and you say yes, because I say yes to everybody who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. And then the 20 seconds later, I'm getting a sales pitch. I'm like, I now have a stock response to that, which is 2 simple words: too soon.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's like think about who really enjoys buying a car process, right? You're like, okay, I know I'm going to buy a car. Now I have to go there and deal with the whole, car salesman stuff. I mean, I hear it all the time. Nobody wants to be sold to that directly. And if you feel like that as a consumer, that's obviously a bad thing. And us as marketers, we need to do better to make you feel like it's a genuine connection and make you feel comfortable. We need to date you, right?
Yeah.
We need to date our customers for a little bit.
Yeah. The arranged marriage doesn't seem to, it's not even an arranged marriage, it's like I don't even know what to call it. But so so how can if other than calling you, which is clearly going to be the easiest way of building this community, uh, and how can people watching this, work on this community building themselves so that they can get to a point where their customers are doing the selling for them instead of their company hitting them over the head?
So I think the key is like building genuine relationships. I think that's the first step. And in turn, that will build advocates for your brand, right? If you think of like our relationship, David, right? So you and I, we met when I was at ICSE, and we had lunch. And before we started ever talking about work or business, we became friends,
Yeah.
right? And so, and when you build that relationship, now that we're friends, I'll do anything for you. If you're like, hey, I have this, can you help me out? Absolutely, sure. Like whatever you need, right? And that's just how it works. And then down the line, then it turns into a business, right? A business transaction or whatever it is. So if you ever need marketing, I assume you're going to come to us, right?
Yeah.
If you ever,
Yeah.
right. So, and if I ever, need quantum listing, I'm coming to you. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's just how it is. It's like when in the industry, there's a lot of golf games going on in our industry, and people are taking folks out for, 18 rounds, and the majority of the time you don't talk about work, right?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, that'd be super annoying. So, you talk about whatever, whatever going on in life, and that's, again, you're focused on building the relationship. So I would say building the relationship is the most important in building your community, making sure you're giving something before you're even thinking of asking for anything. That goes a long way. And again, just building the genuine relationships.
Mark, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we were working on a project recently, and the sort of the whole project was it was an online sort of campaign through paid media campaign, and the ads were we had a specific call to action, and we were looking at ways that we could sort of increase the conversion rates. And I guess the solution that we finally came up with was taking the whole offering and call to action and what we were expecting the target audience to do right back to the sort of beginning. So we had kind of, we were on our first date and we were expecting a sort of kiss at the end of the night, when the reality was that, we needed to actually design the whole thing in a way that it was a 5-date process to get the kiss at the end of the 5 dates instead of on the first date. And I think that's something that we sort of have learned, is that, you can't be in a hurry to kind of rush people down this process. They need to kind of have time to build up the trust and the confidence. And if you approach it and think about it that way, I think you design what you're doing, whether it's an email campaign or it's a paid media, whatever it is, you kind of come in looking at it slightly differently, and then you're almost forced to look at how can you deliver something of value over that time, because you've got a much longer sort of period that you need to keep people engaged, and you're almost forced to have to understand what you have that you can offer them that's valuable, that will keep them engaged and build that trust. And I think what you end up with is a much more sort of authentic sort of campaign, and something that is actually really adding value and will ultimately get you to where you need to be. But it might take you a little bit longer, and you need to put in a bit more effort. But yeah.
Over time, and you've been doing this for a number of years at this point, how have you seen that process change? And is it all because of technology, or because of the consumer has changed? Take us through the arc in your eyes, Mark.
Yeah, I think it has changed on both sides. I mean, I think as consumers we have definitely changed, and like we mentioned earlier, I think we've gone sort of full circle, and we are now looking for those more authentic experiences. We're more educated in terms of what's out there, what brands are doing to get our attention, how brands are kind of learning about us and using that to so. Our audience is a lot more educated, and I think in that they're looking for a more authentic experience. And I think there's no shortcuts to that. I don't think you can sort of find a loophole to create that authentic experience. And I think the audience is too sort of clued up to actually find those loopholes, and that's not as a brand what you want to ultimately be doing. I think the technology, like I said earlier, the technology is allowing us to do amazing things, but you need to put in the time and effort to really understand what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. What is the business objective? What are you actually trying to achieve?
Yeah, and I think Mark and I were actually talking about this earlier about, the pain point of filling a vacancy that, that's something that you need right now, right? I need to fill this vacancy right now. Okay, well, now that it's filled, you might not need that need for 2 to 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are you just going to drop your marketing, or are you going to continue to build that audience and provide education and, again, get that audience there, so when you have another vacancy, you have someone to market to? So you just have to think of it from a long-term approach, if that makes sense.
Sure. How do you right size your clients' expectations, though? How do you tell them that it's not going to be we start the campaign and you're going to see results tomorrow?
Well, I think it's how you measure the success of the campaign. And if you're looking for conversions on a landing page, or you're looking to build a subscriber base through a chatbots kind of campaign, it really depends on you need to make sure that you understand what the objectives are, so that you're not measuring the wrong things.
Yeah, and I think that's a step that I see a lot of marketers do, is they'll put something together and they don't have a clear goal and objective and what they're trying to achieve. And whenever that scenario is there, you're always going to fail. So, like Mark said, it's important to know what your goals and objectives are. So there's really no management from our side to the client on that aspect, because our goals and objectives are always clear well before we execute any type of campaign.
And how do you keep your client focused on that? Instead of keep having like ping pong from one idea to another.
Well, I think that's when we come up with a solid plan, and that's something we work with the client on, so they're in agreement, and there's nothing wrong with being agile and changing if something's not working or something's not going as planned. Ping pong is definitely not a negative thing in some situations. So if something's working, let's say that we have like 2 things and one thing is really working, the other one's not working so much, we might start putting all of our effort into the thing that is working, right? And so it makes some tweaks and things like that. So, and also we work with great people, like our clients, and that's something that we pride ourselves in, is the people that we work with are great to work with. I mean, they're really passionate. They're really excited. They trust us. I think that's really important in an agency relationship, is that you have trust from your clients. So we're able to have an open and honest conversation. And so we don't run into that type of issue, which is, I know it sounds funny, but we you know, we think we're pretty awesome to work with, and we want to work with great people as well. So it's a good match.
Are there clients you turn down because you don't think it is a good fit?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It needs to be a sort of good fit for both sides to succeed. So I think it is very, very important that you're clear about that.
Yeah, and we're focused on only doing great work. And if we feel like, you know, for whatever reason that's not going to happen, we won't just take your money.
So we have a question from Casey Flannery asking, in what ways would it not be a good fit?
You need to
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, we like working with people who are sort of, I don't know how else to say it, not nice people. I mean, we want to work with people who, you know, get that we're all here to sort of achieve the same thing, and that we're good people. You're good people. We want to get the work done, but we're going to have fun while we're doing it. And yeah, I mean, it's
and that's the important part of the creative process, is just respect and being nice to each other. I mean, I know it sounds funny, but you know, a bunch of creative people can't do great work if somebody's not being nice or respectful. And so that might be one of the reasons. Another reason is it might be not in our wheelhouse. Like there might be something in another industry that someone's looking for, and we, you know, like, we really don't feel like we're a good fit, but we'll always recommend somebody who is. So, because we specialize in real estate. That's our focus. So we pride ourselves in that.
Yeah. And I'm sure your pipeline is full just because you guys are out there and you're meeting people all the time and so. But just in case it's not, how do you go out and market yourself?
So I think it's easy. Thought leadership, right? So it's educating the audience, making sure that we're keeping everyone up to date on the latest trends and case studies and stats, and in turn, people know that we are the experts and they'll come to us. I mean, just from our announcement yesterday, so many people came and said, we need help. There's such a huge gap in in our industry for this, and I'm so glad that you guys are filling it. So it's just, I think also just being genuine. That's the great thing that we have, is we have so many connections and so many friends in the industry, and we were able to see all of that love yesterday. So I think it's, we're in a different situation. We're not just a new company starting. We've got years and years and years of solid relationships with all the marketers.
Yeah, and I think David, I mean, there's just something to add to that as well. I think, I talk about the sort of dinner test that we apply to the sort of work that we're doing, but it does sort of filter back to us. So, when we're working on a project or we're doing something, the test that I kind of put it through for myself is, would I go home and tell my wife and my kids about this if I experienced this or was exposed to it, whether it's a story or a print ad or a post on social media? Would I go home and tell my wife and my kids about it and talk about it at the dinner table? And I think what we always try and do is we try and create those campaigns for our clients that have that talkability, that the people who are exposed to it do go home and talk about it at the dinner table. And I think that's the marketing that I want Atypical to kind of be known for, that, people are talking about it at the dinner table because it was such a cool story, and because it was different, and because it was, it had something that they hadn't seen before. And I think that might take longer because you have to go through the process of building the sort of getting to that point. But I think at the end of the day, that's a lot more valuable than, advertising, Atypical, and just, it's actually proving it instead of just saying it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, do you have like a case study that you would share with us about one of your campaigns or a couple of your campaigns, and how it started, what the client looked at, how you sort of went about thinking about that and creating something that you did feel good about talking about at the dinner table?
Yeah, I mean, well, I can certainly speak to the sort of one that may be stuck in your mind, David, the coffee shirt. I think that's quite a cool one. So I mean, if we'll use that as an example. So Atypical sort of works in obviously exclusively in the sort of real estate space, but we either work on the sort of real estate owner operator developer side, or we work with the service providers within the real estate space, so the technology companies or the service providers that sort of service the real estate companies. So one of our clients is a software developer, a custom software developer exclusively in the real estate space. So they work with all of the sort of big US commercial real estate companies providing custom software solutions to those companies. So they came to us with a request that one of the services that they offer is software integration. So they can make your your ERP system talk to your reporting system or your financial system, and they write the software that sits in between those two systems to integrate everything and make everything sort of talk to each other. And they wanted to generate more leads and promote this service of theirs, boost that part of their business. The problem is that talking about software integration is boring to somebody that really understands it, and to sort of try and tell that story to a wider audience is very, very difficult. I mean, it's not an exciting topic to talk about. So how do you actually get people excited about this sort of concept? And the idea that we came up with was keeping the concept of integration intact, but changing the subject. So instead of it being two software sort of programs that we're integrating, why don't we change it to two everyday things that we integrated? So the concept of integration was still the same, but we changed the subject to make it a bit more interesting. So the whole campaign was around impossible integrations, and we came up with three sort of fictitious products that were the result of integrating two things with each other. So the one was coffee and a regular sort of work shirt. And we created a whole website for this coffee shirt, and we did a whole email campaign, and sort of there was a print offline print component, and there was sort of sponsored content that went out. And the whole idea was that we had integrated coffee with the shirt. So you wore the shirt throughout the day, and it sort of synced with your Outlook calendar and released more coffee or caffeine into your system when you did it. We created like three separate products that this campaign ran for 4 months. Every month we released a new product. And the sort of tagline of the campaign was, if you think integrating coffee and a shirt is impressive, wait till you see what we can do with your business systems. And it got so many people talking about this campaign that people went home and spoke about it at the dinner table and told their wife and their kids about it, because, integrating coffee with a shirt is a cool idea. I mean, it's crazy, but it's brilliant. But, in that story, the brand and the brand service offering went along with that story that people were telling. So I think that's a good example of how we sort of try and approach things a little bit differently, but we always make sure that whatever the campaign or story that we're telling is underpinned with the business objective. So we make sure that we don't lose that along the way.
That's great. I love it. And I mean, it really was attention grabbing, and I remember not being able to wait until see what the next wacky but cool idea that was going to be part of that campaign was. It really was fun, and it cut through the clutter.
Because, one of the sorry, David. So the two other products that we developed on that campaign was Power Mouse, which was basically a mouse that using the sort of the movement of your wrist while you were moving the mouse stored that energy in a sort of big battery in your building, and you could actually power your commercial building off the movement of your wrist powering your mouse. And the sales team actually got an inquiry, which they thought was an inquiry for the sort of software integration. And when they arrived, the company was expecting to see the power mouse and a demo of the power mouse. So that was a little bit of a difficult situation, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, I want you to know I am wearing a coffee shirt right now, by the way. So
they're available for pre-order on the site.
Pre-order.
Yeah, if you did a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe for that, it would be subscribed in about 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
So we do have another question from the folks at home, and it is, do you guys work with clients who already have in-house marketing teams but need additional help and capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we work with companies who have no marketing departments, and we can be your full marketing department, or we can be an extra hand and extra resource. So the answer is yes, Casey. We do it all.
Yeah. So I had I only had one. My late stepfather was a rabbi, and he used to travel a lot with my mom, and they would go on cruises and things like that. And when he was traveling, he would typically not tell people that he was a rabbi because he didn't want them to start telling them their woes and problems. And I think he would tell people
he wanted to be on vacation, right?
He wanted to be on vacation, and he told people that he worked for OTB, which, for those of you not from the New York area, OTB was off-track betting. It was the horse betting company or whatever that was owned by New York State or licensed.
That's funny.
So I think that very few people would actually inquire further. So how do you keep yourselves from showing up somewhere and having as somebody like try to offload their marketing woes to you, because you're professionals and you should get paid for what you do? How do you handle that?
Well, luckily, there's only so much you can do in a conversation to help someone's marketing. If that would solve a solution, we would not be in business.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a different situation. So if somebody is having marketing issues, I actually welcome the conversation. And I'm always happy to give ideas, and kind of like we said, remember when you and I met the first time, I'm sure I was throwing out ideas to you guys of what you could do. And that's how you build a relationship. That's how you make friends. I enjoy giving, so I'm definitely a giver, and hopefully when you need to execute it in something much bigger and more thoughtful than what I, kind of spoke to you about in 10 minutes, you'll use us.
Yeah. So the first taste is free, and then after that, you got to pay?
I think it's also, if I'm going into a relationship, I certainly don't go, a conversation, I certainly don't go in thinking or believing that I have got it all figured out and I know everything. So, if I get an opportunity to talk marketing with somebody, it's exciting for me. I think I'm getting just as much out of it as anybody I'm talking to. So, it's about learning and, sharing and ideas and experiences and thoughts. So, I'm never one to sort of shy away from having a good conversation with somebody about cool stuff that I enjoy doing. So
yeah. And David, the problems your father probably heard are much deeper than the problems that we hear. So that's not as intense,
I think that's
not on the same level.
Yes. But should you need a cover story, I recommend trying OTB.
Thanks so much. I'll keep that in mind.
And we have yet another wonderful question. And what do you say to people that don't believe they need to invest in their marketing and their branding?
Good luck with that.
Same answer. Same. I think it's nuts. But I mean, you're talking to the wrong people. I mean, what do you expect us to say? Like, we really believe in marketing. We've seen it work, and you know, personally, I only want to work for a company where I believe in the product, and I believe that we're really making a difference. That's part of my core values as a person. So if anybody says I don't need marketing, my jaw drops to the ground a little bit, because I'm just like, okay. And I think the people who say that just don't understand the capabilities. They don't understand that it can solve huge problems. They don't understand that it can have a huge ROI. They don't understand how relationships building is now, you know, and that's the majority of that is through marketing, you know, and building that trust. They just don't understand what they're saying.
And I think that also, I mean, the question earlier that we had about, you know, how do you sort of decide if you don't want to work with a client or not? And I think if the client's asking and we have to kind of try and convince them that this is a good idea, it's probably not a good fit. Or it's not a good fit. I think, you know, the clients that we are fortunate enough to work with are clients that get it, that understand the value, that we're not having to sell the value to them. They get it. Yeah.
Excellent. And so you're an ocean apart, and now you're partners. Yeah, and I know you just started yesterday, but have you figured out how you're gonna make this work? You know, with the time differences and geographic gap?
So that's a great question, because Marx came to us in 2018, a year ago, and said, hey, it's exactly a year ago, and said, hey, I'm starting this new advertising agency. And we said, okay, we want to help you. We want to be a part of it. So we became partners before he launched. And so we have been working with them for a year now, and we have it all figured out. So there's no learning curve, which is awesome on our end. And a lot of our clients have worked with, you know, the content funnel and Atypical at once. So we've been doing this for, like I said, a year. So we've got all the kinks out, and which is why it just made sense for us to become one company. It's just easy.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think in some ways there's an advantage to having that, you know, I don't know, 7 or 8 hour time difference you do, because in some ways your clients get the advantage of that, because instead of somebody working, you know, 8 or 9 hours a day on their stuff, they can have people working on their stuff 16 hours a day, or, you know, a much greater. And, you know, with, you know, for quantum listing, my tech team is in Ukraine. The guy who worked on my app originally was in China. Now he's in Dubai. The world has gotten really, really small. My son Ben, who's done a lot of content creation for us in the past, is in Colombia. So, you know, with, you know, Skype, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, whatever, not only is it easy to communicate with people, it's free. That's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
So I think that it really, other than, you know, not being in the same space with somebody every day and having, you know, the ability to bounce off ideas instantly all the time, I think that it really, you know, there is absolutely no disadvantage, and possibly even a real advantage to having that gap there.
Well, in our company, the News Funnel, Cretech, now Atypical, we've all worked remotely, so this is like normal for us, and so we've come up with a ton of ways to have that instant interaction. For instance, you know, Mark, myself, and the whole team, we're all in a WhatsApp group, and we constantly are talking all day long, back, forth. Like, instantly. So, you know, and not just about work, just, you know, things that you would talk about in the office. So, and then Mark, they've obviously got a full office there with a large portion of the team, you know, all together as well. So, yeah, we don't skip a beat with that. And I have to say, it's really been amazing working with the entire team. You know, now we're all one team, but before that, the Atypical team, they're just so creative, so on it, so they understand what's going on, they understand the trends. They work global hours, so that was one of the biggest concerns we had when we first started this partnership, and having them work with our clients is, are they going to be available after 2 p.m., right, Eastern Standard Time? Mm-hmm. And so, so it's been great, you know, just seeing their work ethic, you know, and how hard they work and the hours they put in, and it's not a chore. They love doing it. It's like everyone's passionate on the team about doing great work, and it's, again, that was one of the reasons why we decided to join forces. I mean, their core values are the same as ours. So, and plus, we love them as people. Like, you want to work with people that you love, right? Like, that you have fun with, and that's where the magic happens.
When this past May at ICSC Recon, we shared the booth with you guys, and this was obviously before I knew about the pending merger with Atypical, and it was so apparent that you guys, you and Mark and Amanda, who from the Content Funnel was there, that there was such mutual respect and admiration among all of you, and it was a beautiful thing to see. And when I told Julia from my team that you guys were merging, I think she saw it coming. She's like, "Yeah, I'm not surprised," because I think it was, evident that you guys really worked so well together. So I'm glad to see that the inevitable happened. So congratulations on that. So it is now just about noon here in New York, and I don't want to keep you guys beyond your time, but if anybody has any questions, they can either feel free to unmute themselves or type a message in the chat before we say goodbye. And if, while we're waiting for that to happen, if you guys have any parting remarks that you'd like to share with our folks, I guess the first, I'll have one question, which is, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can go on to atypicalcompany.com, or you can reach out to me at Sara at atypical.com. Atypicalcompany.com, and then Mark at atypicalcompany.com.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier, I think maybe before we started, that I had a little joke, and you can see, this is my joke, is that because you're atypical, I put your contact information here, but I put it upside down.
I love it.
But
I love it.
Okay, here it is, the right way.
Thank you. Mark, anything else you wanna add?
No, I mean, that was great, David. I mean, it's, thanks very much for the opportunity. I think that was brilliant. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate your time. You guys are terrific, and I look forward to keeping the conversation going in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the great questions.